Hello, everyone, and welcome to our day early comic review video. I'm Jason,
I'm Andy.
and we're with Infinity Flux Comics out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, where every Monday after the comics have been delivered and our team has bagged and boarded them, Andy and I divide them up, we read them, and we go over the ones we think most people want to hear about. So we're going to tell you collectible reasons you might want these comics. I think, what is it, like 11 new first appearances and
Yeah.
things this week? And that's about average, I'd say.
Yeah.
But more than that, we're going to go over a lot of issue number ones, telling you what they're about, what the plots are, who the creative team is, what the art is like. So when you go in your store, you know which ones that you're more drawn to.
hmm
So I'd say a pretty medium week. When all's said and done, I think we're going to have gone over about 21 comics that are releasing Tuesday and Wednesday. We have the first few of them out in front of us. All the rest to the side, we're going to show the variants and the incentives. So let's begin. What's first, Andy?
First is I feel like one of our first steps into Lazarus Planet. We got the Lazarus Planet one shot a week or so ago. Now this is Lazarus Planet, or DC Universe's Lazarus Planet Assault on Krypton #1, the mouthful. So this is really interesting. They're doing these one shots, which I actually applaud them for doing these anthology style one shots instead of launching full like 3, 4 issue miniseries to run alongside it. To follow certain characters, you're getting these one shots that are focused on different corners of the DC universe. So starting off, this is kind of the Superman universe, what's going on with them during the Lazarus event. So, of course, Lazarus volcano blows up, starts raining down Lazarus goo on everybody. It transforms some, it enhances some, just kind of a big who knows what's going to happen. So, this one is made up of multiple stories. Starting with a story about the new-ish now character Dreamer, who she's really set herself up in the kind of Superman corner of the universe. Uh, her power is to kind of see the future and go through people's dreams. Well, she suddenly has a vision of. Uh, she doesn't know it's Doctor Fate's helmet, but Doctor Fate's helmet, she sees a lot of kind of destruction and stuff reflected in it, and then nothing. So basically, she goes to um, Robin and Superman, Jonathan Kent, and stuff, and is like, "Hey, I think I saw the future, and it's nothing." And so that starts her story where she is going to attempt to recover the helmet of fate to figure out what does its tie with all of this. That's also written by Nicole Maines, who plays Dreamer in the Flash Arrow universe. So that's really cool. Then we get a story about Jonathan Kent, Superman, who is going about his day being Superman, stops a uh, it's like a shoplifter, like a clothes shoplifter who's hit a couple of stores, but that's when the rain starts coming down and something happens to the shoplifter. He gets powers, and it looks like Jonathan's powers are getting kind of shaken up to where he's very unstable. Now, some things say this is the first appearance of this new electric blue Jonathan Kent Superman. That is not case. You never see him looking like what he does on the cover in this. You may see what eventually leads to that, but at least for this issue, that does not happen. But it kind of introduces a new villain like character. It feels like there's some love interest tension between the shoplifter and Superman, which I don't think that would go down too well with his father. Uh, but that shoplifter gets powers, and this story is to be continued in the Adventures of Superman, uh, Jonathan Kent miniseries coming out. So this is your lead into that. We also get the story of Mercy Graves, who is Lex Luthor's bodyguard, which is a character that hasn't really been explored that much recently. And what happens when she gets struck by basically Lazarus lightning? You'll kind of get a hint of that on one of the covers, but it looks like she's going to be a big character coming up. And then finally, we have a story of Power Girl. It's a very kind of trippy story. I mean, it's very dreamlike as she's falling through these things and seeing visions and everything. And she meets up with an old Teen Titans character we haven't seen in a while called Omen. And all of this, I feel like, is leading into further storylines coming up in different books. But if you kind of want a taste of what's going on with the Lazarus stuff and giving you hints of what's to come in the future of the DC universe, this is a great one to pick up. Very enjoyable read with different writers and artists working on it. You can see pretty much all the characters that this focuses on the cover. But I thought the Dreamer story is really cool, and the Jonathan Kent story is setting up a very cool uh, miniseries coming up. So, of course, we've got a lot of variants for this because it's a big book this week. This is oversized too. It's a one shot and it's $4.99.
Probably a 40-page oversized.
Yeah, we have this Jen Bartel Dreamer cover, which is very nice. We have this, and it's funny, each of these variants kind of represent part of the story. We have this Fox Faccio variant with Power Girl. We have this Zerdy Mercy Graves variant. She's looking a little electronic, little robotic. And then we have this 1 in 25 colon variant with the Lazarus volcano that we are selling to our customers for $20.
All right, so I read the first issue of Wasp. You know, Marvel's got to get this out before Quantumania. So this is the new 4-issue miniseries that is going to star both of the Wasps. That is Janet Van Dyne and her stepdaughter Nadia Van Dyne. This is written by Al Ewing with art by Cassia Nye. So in this, Nadia is opening up a bar, okay, like a really ritzy New York bar. But there's also going to be an upstairs VIP area that is just for superheroes, for them to unwind and for them to hang out. But not a lot of the plot really stays there. You know, it kind of begins with that, but out of the blue, she's attacked by an old enemy when her and Nadia are kind of having a talk. What they were discussing is the fact that Nadia's never really known her real mother. Her real mother's name was Maria Trevaya. She was Hank Pym's first wife
Mm.
and was killed before Nadia could ever meet her. Well, Nadia wants to figure out who did it once and for all and get revenge for the mother she never knew. So as they're discussing this, an old enemy of Janet's attacks, and you'll have to see where that goes, but he attacks with sort of a message from somebody that is going to lead to a further mystery, which is sort of what the series is about. So
Hmm.
that's generally what's going on in Wasp. I think the cover is a good representation of the interior art. It's very colorful, very easy to follow, just sort of classic comic style art. Um, I guess when I say classic, I mean like normal, not classic.
Yeah, yeah.
So, although there is a part where they go into Janet's past where the style switches
That's cool.
to the old style Avengers art. So I thought it was a pretty good first issue, and we definitely have some cool variants for it. Here is the Dodderman variant.
That's cool.
Yeah, if you're going to get one, this is probably the one. But if you're going to get more than one, maybe you'll want one of these other ones. Here is the Nettie's variant. Here is the Riley Window Shades variant. And here is the Sakura Demonized variant. I should also mention this issue does have sort of a last page villain that a lot of people might think is a cameo of someone new. It isn't. They say their name, and I looked into it. It's a villain. It's a character that hasn't been in comics since 1988. You know,
Okay.
digging real far back, but it might be a new form of them.
Okay.
So I will mention that.
It's interesting too. This looks a lot like the Ant-Man series they did
Mhm.
a few months ago, which I know every issue of that kind of spotlighted a different Ant-Man, and I'm wondering maybe this is going to focus on kind of the history of Wasp and what that means.
I think so, and I don't think we've seen Nadia and Janet together a lot. I
Yeah.
think it's going to be a lot about them, and probably eventually lead to who killed Nadia's mother
Cool.
and why.
Next up, I have great indie book for the week, Nightclub #2. So a lot of people pick this up. One of the main reasons is it's only $1.99.
Low price point.
Low price point by Mark Millar and Juanan Ramirez. And so I feel like a lot of people are going to be interested in this #2 because, I mean, You know, if you would like that number one, this is a pretty easy pickup for $2. Now, the story is really good too, dealing with our character for the first issue, Danny, who got bitten by a vampire, and when he learns that he has all these vampire abilities, he can like fly, turn into smoke, turn into animals. Basically, everything a vampire's ever been able to do, he can do. So to him, that just seems like superpowers. Uh, Now, in this one, we take that even further, where if you're a teenager and you get these powers, you cannot keep that secret for long. You've got some best friends that you're going to tell about this, if not just to show off a little bit. So he goes to two of his friends. They're very freaked out at first, but he kind of calms them down and reveals his powers and basically says, I can give you these powers too. So uh, kind of setting up what you've seen on a lot of the covers where there's multiple of these vampire kid superheroes. The art in this is great. Ramirez does a great job. It's funny because you see it and you're like, that's like Spider-Man, but it's done on purpose. This is that definitely with great power comes great responsibility idea, but retrofitted on an indie vampire character. And then his friends, the way they move about the city is very Spider-Man poses. It's really cool. I enjoyed this issue. I'm looking forward to reading more of this. Mark Miller, just he's a great writer. He's got a great voice for these characters. So that is our issue 2. And then we have a black and white version of the variant, also $1.99.
All right, so here it is. I wanted to start with this one, but I have so many Marvel books. I like to go, like Marvel, DC, Indie
Yeah,
if I can. But it is Nightwing issue 100, the centennial issue.
he looks
So
good for 100.
this is, of course, pretty much a double-sized issue, and it is really, really good. I quite enjoyed it. It's probably my favorite read of the week. So this, of course, is by the regular team of Tom Taylor with Bruno Redondo. And what I'll say right up front is that due to what Nightwing does in this, some heroics he does, he is offered an opportunity by the end of this. He doesn't necessarily take it yet. It's like he'll think about it, but it is a big, big opportunity. I mean, enough that it will affect other DC books as well.
Yeah.
And it kind of shows how big of a character Nightwing has got in this DC universe. So, um, but what is this about? So this stays with the main plot line. Like Heartless is one of the main villains. Is the main villain in it, and he strikes. So he goes to Bloodhaven prison and he lets pretty much everybody out. So the streets are flooded with thousands of villains. Some of them superhero villains or supervillains. You will have to read it to find out how is Nightwing able to cope with this. Obviously, he's going to need some help as well. So there are many guest stars, but largely it is Nightwing using his head, which is a lot of what Tom Taylor has been having Dick Grayson do as himself and as Nightwing. He's been deconstructing the system. He's been trying to change things in a different sort of social way without being too preachy about it, which is great. Very interesting for a superhero comic to do it so well. Not that they
Yeah.
haven't in the past. Superhero comics have always had social ideas and ideas about justice that are different than long-standing ones that may need a little tweaking. So all that excites me about this, but also there is very late into it a scene with Dick Grayson and Bruce Wayne as Batman and Nightwing at the grave of Alfred, and they have an exchange between them that's very emotional. Like if you read it, it's done really, really well. It might bring you to tears. And it's not just about Alfred, though. It's not just, oh, Alfred, we're so sad. It's
Yeah.
about them, it's about their relationship, everything. Really good scene. This issue is just a great read. You'll enjoy it. It's action packed. It'll make you think. It'll make you feel something. It's the best thing you can do
Yeah.
with the work of fiction. It makes you feel something. So excellent 100th issue of Nightwing. I'm happy to report.
I love that Nightwing is really a character they've let mature and grow and kind of take the lessons he learned from Batman, but how does he put his Nightwing spin on it? We've seen that with his wealth that he's accumulated. How does he deal with this? And this is a character that I feel like out of any of the characters has had the most uh, you've watched him grow up to a point where whatever job he takes on, at one point he was Batman or whatever, you go, yeah, he deserves that. Like he's learned
So
his lesson.
speaking of that growth, there is about 6 full pages of Nightwing, and this is part of the story where he's kind of thinking about his own evolution, and you get page a piece of all of his outfits. And just they also, the way it's drawn, you see the attitude of him at the time in his stance and in what he's doing. And it's not like, oh, it's at the end. It's just sort of like some pictures. Like this is part of the story and part of his thought process. It's good. It's so appropriate.
Mm.
So read it, you'll like it. Um, a lot of variants for it though. So if you're a variant person, this might hurt the wallet. So let's see. The first one we have is done by, of course, the interior artist Bruno Redondo, and I think this is a
Is that acetate?
it is. So what happens is it feels really nice for one thing. It's all slick and nice feeling, but
Oh, who's that hiding there behind?
yep. So we have the acetate one. Then the next one, of course, got to be Jamal Campbell.
Yep.
No doubt about that. Jamal Campbell, who's done so many great Nightwing variants, you just lose count. Then we have here's the Jimenez, and their relationship has grown a ton as well.
Yeah, I love that.
Here is the Hernandez and Maury variant, which I like a lot too.
It's very classic Nightwing.
Yep. Here's one. Here's the Moore and Bonneville one, the old Teen Titans. Here is the Jim Lee, Williams, and Sinclair. Jim Lee's got to get in there,
yeah.
do some work. And then this one's great. Here is the George Perez homage, one of the creators of Nightwing, a legend of comics.
Yeah, and I think that's like some of his original sketches for
Mhm.
Nightwing.
Yep, absolutely. And then we also have the 1 in 25 Babs Tar variant we're selling to our customers for $25. And lastly, there's a 1 in 50 Fornes variant that we're selling to our customers for $35. One last note, by the end of this issue, a classic team may be reborn and reformed. So much going on in this one.
How much what's the cover price of that issue? Oh, just the regular.
I'm used to buying all the comics. I can't look or else. This is $6.99.
Okay, so not too bad. I was expecting like a $9.99
Or
or a
no,
100.
No, for double, it's like double size,
Okay.
and I think your variants are going to cost you $1 more because they have used a nicer card stock.
I appreciate a anniversary issue like that. That's not just one little like a bunch of little stories. When you actually have the writer do the whole thing.
It's one full story,
Yeah.
and then the part with him and Batman at Alfred's grave.
Yeah, and that it moves the story forward.
Yep.
Too. It's not kind of a detour. Okay, next up, I've got Hulk issue number 11. I always have to check and make sure I've got the right issue number. Really fun issue. One of my favorite artists of all time, Ryan Otley. He's been on this series for a while, but this is the first issue that he is actually taking over writing duties from Donny Cates. And what you can tell about this issue, I don't know if this is true, but it seems like this is the okay, I'm going to do an issue so I can plan uh, the next few issues. Give me kind of a buffer to kind of figure it out because this is a really fun issue. This is definitely art focused. Of course, when you have the artist being the writer on it, but it kind of gets to do everything that Ryan Otley loves to do. So if you're a fan of like his bombastic stuff on Invincible, you'll get some crazy stuff as Hulk learns how to play Godball on this kind of gamma powered world he's on, where it's just so over the top. Everyone's got so many muscles, smacking this kind of almost moon sized uh, ball around. It's a really fun issue. And it does kind of tease at the end that we're going to be getting Return of Titan, which I think is the big final part of this Hulk series. It's going to be really cool. So, just wanted to make you aware this is kind of a little bit of a detour, but if you just like kind of fun one and done stories, you see Hulk just going all out. This one is great for that. We've got some variants for that. We have the Junie Ba variant. Someone's about to get a punch in the eyeball. We've got the Ed McGuinness variant. That is very cool. We have the Anatomy variant. You can see him kind of deconstructed. And then lastly, we have the 1 in 25 Daniel Warren Johnson variant that we're selling to our customers for $20. But I like the landscape of it.
Okay, so I read House of Slaughter issue number 11, which, let's check out the cover. It says The Butcher's Return, Part 1. So this is the beginning of a new story arc. On the cover here, we have Jace, who we haven't seen in a while. He's, of course, missing a hand. He looks like he has sort of a tattooed face on this, which he doesn't really have in the issue, at least yet. So this may be things to come since the beginning of a new story arc. So I will say right off the bat, this has two first appearances. The first one is a character named Jolie, who is from Jace's past. She's from the original house he was with when he was originally trained. He's an old childhood, or she's an old childhood friend who has grown up to become a hunter herself. And then the second first appearance is a character. It's a kid named Sonny, who Jace has rescued from monsters. But instead of training him the way you would expect and happens in all the slaughter stuff, Jace is trying to keep him away from all that. So this issue kind of starts out with Sonny. He's sort of with a Boy Scout troop that Jace is like watching over, and he's telling stories about monsters and how Jace saved him. And Jace is like, no, 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 don't talk about that. We don't talk about that. So past that, we get more of Jace's history in his dreams. You go back to sort of him being raised in that old house where you'll meet Jolie. Plus, by the end of the issue, an old friend of Jace's might have to step in and save Sonny, and seems to be almost certainly going to cross paths with him again. So, but it might not be who you think. The only hint I'll give is it's not Aaron, because I mean, everyone's going to think, if you've been reading this, oh, old friend, cross paths again. No, not yet, at least. So that's what's going on in House of Slaughter issue number 11. We got a few variants for this. We've got the Luckert variant. See, that's Jace with Sonny. We've got this really cool Jenny Frison variant. It's just very subtle. It looks better sort of in your own hands, I think, than the camera's displaying. We have the interior artist of the variant, the Deladera variant. And then the one per store is the virgin sketch, or the sketch version of the Deladera that we're selling to our customers for $15. And then there is a Manahini virgin variant of the regular cover. It's 1 in 25 that we are selling for $25.
Next up for me, I have a book I really enjoyed this week. This is Batman One Bad Day Bane, #1. So what I like about these One Bad Day issues is, your mileage will vary on what kind of storytelling you like, because you do have different writers and artists on every one of them. So I know a lot of people really like the Riddler one. It was definitely more serious, darker tone. I really like this Bane one. It's written by Joshua Williamson, and Howard Porter does the art. I love Howard Porter. And what this is it feels like a really solid one shot of a book I wish existed, because we are following Bane. This is set in the near future, but it's not like Batman Beyond future. It's just kind of like everything basically looks the same, but all the characters are a little bit older. Bane has kind of, I don't know how you do it or how he got away with it, but kind of semi-retired from being a supervillain. Um, and he is now a luchador wrestler, which is very fitting for him. But he's getting kind of burned out of that, because he has these fighters come in dressed as Batman, and all they want to do is have Bane break their backs. I don't know. it seems like he has a way of doing it where it's a crowd pleaser, but it's kind of a kayfabe where the guy dressed as Batman will come to him backstage and be like, "Oh man, that was great," all this stuff. So I don't think he actually breaks their backs, but he's kind of this like does the same old show every week.
He knows some chiropractic moves. He's
Apparently,
just popping the
yeah, it
backs.
sounds
That
really
sounds
bad,
like it could be broken, but
but it's called what do they call it? The Break the Bat event. It's almost like a pay-per-view Break the Bat event. But uh, you can tell that Bane is kind of there's a lot of flashes between him currently and then his entire story leading up to the moment where he broke Batman's back. And a lot of regrets he has along the way, uh, dealing with the Venom, kind of the different people he ran with when he was younger. And he still celebrates that like he hit his peak when he broke Batman's back. That's why everybody wants to bring up to him. He has a newspaper of that event happening above his fireplace when he goes and sits alone. But one day someone shows up at his house and says basically, "Hey, look, someone is manufacturing Venom again. Isn't this great?" And Bane does not think it's great because that's kind of uh, his regret. He could have had a different life if not for the Venom, and now he is going to stop this production of Venom from happening. But he may run into an obstacle of Batman, who immediately just wants to fight Bane. But you'll have to see. They may end up teaming up to take this out. This is a really like if you can have a very emotional and like introspective story about Bane, who's just a slab of meat of a character. This is really great. This is a lot of that. The art is fantastic from Howard Porter. I just thought this was a much needed like fleshing out of Bane as a character. I know he's had some really good stuff. He's a master tactician and everything, but this really explored his entire life and what it means for him to to be what he is. So highly recommend this issue of One Bad Day Bane. Really, really fun. This is the cover done by Howard Porter, so that's an idea of what your interior art looks like. We've got the Jim Lee variant. I love when they deal more with Bane's mind because he's really smart rather than just being a hulking character. Then we have the Homunculi variant, and we have this 1 in 25 Liam Sharp variant that we're selling to our customers for $20.
okay, so I read Invincible Iron Man issue number 2 by the new creative team of Jerry Dugan with Juan Frigeri doing the art. So the first thing I have to admit that I have to confess is this one-on-one against Ironheart. This does not happen in this issue. I mean, not a bit, not even a little. I mean, Ironheart is in the issue. At most, they may have a conversation that has a slight disagreement, and I mean slight. But this does not happen. Maybe this is to come. I just want to put that right out there. Um, However, it's still a good issue. Um, so, if you read the first one, you know that Tony Stark's life's gone bad. He's basically like lost his money. He's like living in a hovel, and he's just had a bad time of it. Well, it seems that there might be somebody impersonating him who is trying to ruin his life. This started in issue 1. This continues into this issue, and furthermore, out of nowhere, Living Laser, one of Iron Man's villains, attacks his old company. So he's no longer with the company, but he attacks the company when they're doing a press release. And so it's up to Tony Stark and Riri Williams to try to put a stop to him. So the question is, can they beat him together? And also, what secret is Riri actually harboring that Tony will find out by the end of this? It still doesn't cause them to do this, though. Doesn't even look like it's about to happen by the end of this issue. But she does have a secret, and you would have had to have been reading the other series to see how this is set up. But it's okay if you weren't. You'll get it.
Yeah.
So that's sort of what's going on in Invincible Iron Man number 2. And we got a few variants for this. We have the Ribic homage variant.
That's a great one.
We have the Leighton connecting variant, who's doing all the different Iron Man suits. We have the Allen Stormbreaker variant. And lastly, this one's really cool, the Nakayama Demonized variant.
It's not just Tony Stark that got demonized, it's his entire suit.
Yep, where is this villain?
Okay, I've got Punisher number 9. So this series continues to be crazy. It's interesting. In the Daredevil actually does appear briefly in this issue, but it feels like more of the Daredevil versus Punisher storyline is going on in Daredevil
Daredevil.
instead. Um, it could there we could in a couple of issues have a more like back and forth, but for right now, you do see him briefly, but it's not even really in the context of what's going on between them.
Mhm.
But this is still a really interesting issue. So if you had any questions about, like, I know earlier in the series you see Punisher's eyes turn red, and you're like, oh no, does he have some kind of powers? What are his powers? In this issue, he's flying. So yes, Punisher has these powers. Um, and in this one, he is finally going up against Ares. That has been the villain since the series started, as someone he is trying to take down as the acolyte of the fist. I can never remember what he is because it's not the hand. He's part of the fist now, or he's part of the hand, and Daredevil's part of the fist. I don't remember. But of his organization of really bad ninjas, he's the head of it, and he's finally going to go against Ares, which is a great fight because now you've got him on superhero terms fighting a god. It is a very brutal battle that you'll have to I won't describe here, but you'll have to read it to see. It is a uh, no one holds back, which is very cool to see in this. But the other part of this that I really like, I don't know why I like uh, repercussions for things in comics, but I want to see it with the X-Men, and in this, uh, Black Widow has been watching Punisher and sees what's been happening with that, and goes and reports to Captain America, hey, you know, Punisher is. I think he's got powers now. This may be a problem, and it looks like we are setting up a Punisher versus Avengers story that I think is actually going to be really, really cool, considering the characters that are involved, like Moon Knight, like Wolverine, some of who might have been Punisher's previous, I guess, partners in various
Right,
stories
for sure.
are being called in. So very cool issue of Punisher, and yep, definitely recommend this one. I'm glad to see a lot of momentum moving forward with the Ares story, and where it leaves that is very cool. We also have this Yoon variant as well.
All right, so I read Flash issue number 791. This is the second part of the 1 Minute War. This, of course, is written by the team of Jeremy Adams with art by Roger Cruz. It's around the cover we have Ms. Murder and Mayhem. So that is the first cover appearance of a new villain named Ms. Murder. She has what I will say is a first cameo appearance in this. So you know what that means. Final panel,
Yeah.
you know. But Ms. Murder doesn't seem like she is the leader. That's the interesting thing.
Mm.
She seems like she is like, somebody who goes out and kills people for the evil aliens. So of course the 1 Minute War is all about this alien race of speedsters who have come to Central City to take over Earth. They want to rob us of our rich hydrogen and all the minerals we have and such. Um, they're called the Faction. Well, in this issue, we get to see a lot more of their weaponry. What are they attacking with? Meanwhile, all the speedsters that we saw in the first part, who were kind of realizing what's happening, they're all finding each other in this issue and starting to discuss, okay, what are we going to do about this? Like, how are we going to stop this? Because these aliens are just going to destroy the Earth before anybody even realizes what they're doing. Um, so that's generally what this is about. Plus, the faction also finds out about the speedsters on Earth. So that's the
Mm.
other thing that's going on in this. So a good second part to this very cool 1 Minute War. And I just have one variant to show you. Here is the Bayless variant for Flash, issue number 791.
And I've got one of my current favorite ongoing series. This is Batman Superman World's Finest, number 11. This is wrapping up the Boy Thunder storyline. And I guess not a spoiler now because they revealed it in a previous issue that Boy Thunder will eventually become Magog. He's a kind of a classic. He was in a lot of Jeff Johns, JSA, and that kind of thing, but he is a very formidable opponent and sometimes ally to Superman and the Justice League. So it's interesting here. His first thing was in Kingdom Come, the Mark Waid Kingdom Come, which of course this is written by Mark Waid, and the title of this is "Thy Will Be Done." So it's a little bit of a giveaway there. But in this, we have our one of our main villains in this, the Key, who has basically the. It's hard to get like a full range of his powers. He can unlock anything from a distance, but he's got some other stuff. But in this, following what happened in the previous issue, Boy Thunder went all out on Joker, and now that has Batman and Superman scared, they think this kid may be uncontrollable. And just as they are trying to decide what to do with Boy Thunder, they actually come up with something to do. But you'll have to read it because it's something I didn't know that the Fortress of Solitude could do, but it's kind of scary. Uh, the Key opens up all the doors in Superman's zoo of crazy animals. So there's a lot going on here, but by opening doors, the Key can bring in some allies, and this is where the fun happens because I was like, oh, are these all first appearances? No, they are all like crazy golden age characters that maybe only appeared in a handful of issues. So much so that the most well-known character they bring in is Zebra Man. I was like, I've heard of Zebra Man. But we also get characters like Bag O' Bones, Dr. Phoenix, the Abominable Snowman, Ferlin Nixley, and his demonic harp. Uh, it's a lot of fun. I love that Mark Waid is pulling in these classic characters that drive me to like, DC Wiki. Who is this? And be like, oh, that's really cool. But you find out in this, uh, because it is the final part of the story arc, what is going to lead Boy Thunder to his inevitable future as Magog, and it sets up a great tease for storylines to come. So another fantastic issue of World's Finest. I just grazed the surface of the great stuff that happens in this. You'll have to read it for yourself. And we've got some really good variants this week, including two covers I might as well show together. These are by John Boy Myers, and they are connecting. We have a Power Girl and a Huntress cover. It's really hard to do this reversed. That are connecting. We also have this one, which I think is going to be a pretty big one if you're a fan. This is a cover by Jack White of the White Stripes. With, I'm guessing, his interpretation of Superman and Batman, you really got to give it a look. Very weird, kind of mixed media, but super cool. And then we have a 1 in 25 Junie Ba variant as well that we're selling to our customers for $20.
Okay, so I read a new indie series, number one. It is Lucky. It's actually called Tim Seeley's Lucky. So from Keen Spot Comics. And so right off the bat, you see there's a girl. She's got a cat's tail. So this was actually plotted by and created by Tim Seeley, but it is written and drawn by Troy Gungara. And I think Troy Gungara did a pretty good job on this. So I think the favorite thing about this is probably the setting. It's set in a place called Frankenvia, where it's humans and monsters sort of living in harmony.
Hmm.
The monsters aren't the bad guys, they're fine. but the villains of the world are actually monster hunters. So like Van Helsing is like a serial killer. He kills monsters, you know.
That's fun.
So anyway, Lucky was part of this superhero team called the Super Beasts, which is a old team that Tim Seeley had created and done. In fact, there's a link at the beginning where you can read free comics about the Super Beasts. And so the Super Beasts, it's like, you know, Dracula and
Mm.
other monster people. Well, Lucky was their newest member, and back in the day, she was sort of like the young person. This is set 5 years later, though. The team has broken up, and she thinks it's largely because her power is to take other people's luck momentarily and use it for herself. And so her team failed a lot. You know,
Mm.
like she would do well, but they would get hurt and lose. And so, anyway, it's 5 years later. The team's broken up. She is now a delivering dinner driver. You know, she's working for one of those companies. And in this, though, she learns that there are some plots going on that she wants to stop, and some of them might involve her old teammates and might put her up
Mm.
against them. So there is plenty of action in this. You know, it's not like she just hears a whisper. Like, you know, she has to fight a lot of
Mm.
people and stuff like that. I think the cover represents the interior art that Gungara does, which is really good. It's got that creepy but fun style you would expect from like a horror action
Mm.
comic. So I thought the art was really appropriate for this. So that's so basically what she learns takes her out of retirement. She dons a new outfit and she's going back out on her own to try to stop some of her old teammates and some other things she learns about. So that's what's going on in Lucky number one. And as far as variants, we have this one variant. This is the variant. This is the Piers variant.
And I've got a couple of Star Wars books this week, starting off with Han Solo and Chewbacca, number 9. Hard to believe this book is already up to number 9. But what makes this one really cool is this actually picks up on some of the storylines from Star Wars Revelations, that Marvel Timeless like issue for Star Wars that sets up future storylines. In that, we got introduced to Ajax Sigma, who was this revolutionary droid in the form of it started revolutions. uh, and we saw kind of his history in that that goes many years back, but we find out what is currently where his droid brain is, which is the kind of like the memory card to a droid that is brought up in here, and actually Ajax Sigma is talked about. So if you are looking forward to what's to come, it feels like they are passing that baton between the series, moving it up to the present day Star Wars stories where we're going to get a big story in it, but you kind of see what hands it has gone through on the way there, which may include Han Solo and Chewbacca. We've got a variant for this. This is our Todd Knock variant with Han telling you and another thing. And then we also this week have Bounty Hunters number 30, which you can see Vader is slowly creeping into this series because he was not happy with the way things are going down. And we have a variant for this. This is the lambing variant. And we have the Return of the Jedi 40th anniversary cover. And this is number 2. So you can still keep up with these. We're at 2 of, I believe, 40. So
All right, I read Venom issue number 15. This is another dark web tie-in. You can see that in the upper left right there. And well, not maybe necessarily last issue of this, but last time we saw Eddie Brock um, in the dark web was kind of going up against X-Men and Spider-Man,
mhm.
and due to the trauma of that battle, he turned into Bedlam, which is a predestined form he's supposed to turn into. That's a lot of what's been going on in Venom story with all the Meridia stuff. Is Eddie Brock's been learning that his destiny is to turn into all these different forms of King in Black and eventually become Meridius. Well, one of those forms is Bedlam, and so that just happened. And so in this issue, Eddie basically has to sort of fight with himself, as you'll see. But meanwhile, a lot of this is Dylan's story. Dylan has decided he's going to find his father and he's going to rescue him. And to do this, he needs to put together sort of a symbiote force to help him. So he is going to call in a favor from a friend we haven't seen in a while, somebody who is going to need to get super powered up if he's going to help Dylan and become part of his symbiote team. So I think when you read this, you'll be if you're into Venom over the last few years, you'll be excited to see this character back. And I think lastly, there is a special appearance of another superhero, one typically not seen in a Venom book, one that is more related to Peter Parker, perhaps a co-worker
Mhm.
character, makes a surprise appearance in this and looks to be coming back in the next issue too. So that's generally what's going on in Venom issue number 15. And then as far as variants, we have the Klein variant, and the John Tyler Christopher homage variant.
Sounds great.
Yeah, from Amazing. This is homaging Amazing Spider-Man 375. Just less foily.
Yeah, and we're getting closer and closer to that Summer of the Symbiote story, which I think a lot of this is leading towards.
I also forgot there is this 1 in 25 Sue variant
Ooh, that one's cool.
that we are selling to our customers for 25 bucks. Trying to get it where there's less glare on it.
It's a little
There we
bit
go.
reminiscent of Gleason's um, webhead
Mhm.
variants. Next up, I've got Stargirl and the Lost Children number 3. So this issue is really cool because they've been teasing the character for pretty much the whole series, but this actually has our first look, the first full appearance of the Childminder. The it seems to be the main villain of this mini series, who promises these lost sidekicks that no one cares about their futures. She does. Uh, Also, has chicken legs, which is also very weird. She's a very weird looking character, but very interesting. So this is where a majority of my first appearances are this week. If you've read the previous, I think it was in the end of the first one that had, or it was the Golden Age special that had the who's who in the back of it with a lot of these lost characters. You actually get their first appearance in this issue. You've got characters like the Blue Boys, one character called Little Miss Redhead, which I don't know if she has any powers, what that would be. The character called TikTok, who'd be very popular nowadays, and John Henry Jr., Salem, kind of the witch girl, just a lot of really interesting characters, and more than that appear in this issue. And the other big thing is, if you read Flashpoint Beyond, this heavily, I would say heavily ties into it, but a certain character will appear, and you'll go, "Oh, now I see how all this connects." So very cool. If you were reading Flashpoint Beyond, enjoyed it, or if you had some questions about some of the time traveling characters in there, you may get more answers in this issue. I thought this was really fun and a big, I don't want to say big first appearance. It depends how you think of big first appearances, but the final page has a character that's been teased shows up that I won't give away who it is, but is a relation to a classic DC character. We have variants for this one. I really like this variant. It's a lot of fun. This is the Amy Reader variant.
Okay, so I read I Hate Fairyland, issue number 3. This, of course, is the latest ongoing I Hate Fairyland series by creator Scotty Young, who did this awesome cover, and the interior artist Sean Bean. So, what do we have on this cover? It's a new monster. What's it called? It's a Gertlin. That's right. This issue has a heavy Gremlins parody to it in the way of creatures called Gertlins. You will have to read as to how these creatures come about. They have rules like gremlins. I'll say one. One rule is don't give them alcohol. Well, if you know Gert, that's very difficult. So you'll have to see how all this goes down. So in this issue, of course, Gert and her team, they're trying to get out of the Inferno. The Inferno is this hell-like place. Um, and if she gets through that, she'll get back into Fairyland proper where she can do her job and rescue this person's kid and make all the money she wants. I'm not gonna. It doesn't go easily though. This is almost like a one-off issue, to tell you the truth. It has a lot to do with the Gert lens, but I liked it. I enjoyed it a lot. I mean, this just kind of shows how the series is just going to have a lot of action, a lot of humor, and just a lot of good times along the way, and not get too bogged down by a heavy plot. The plot's there, but they can pause and have this whole issue about
Mhm.
the Gertland problem, which I thought was a great issue. Plus, by the end of it, there may be a reoccurring villain for later in the series.
Cool.
So that's what's going on in I Hate Fairyland, issue number 3. Just, great series to read. Here we have the Momoko variant, and then we have the Sean Bean variant, who of course is our incredible interior artist who loves drawing scenes like this.
Okay, next up for me, I have this is actually the variant cover for Batgirls. I'm not even sure what issue this is. 14.
Yeah.
Batgirl number 14, which this is a beautiful art germ variant with Cassandra Cain and Stephanie Brown. But what makes this issue unique is this is a silent issue, which is very fitting for Cassandra Cain, who spent most of her young life in silence when she was trained to be the assassin that she is. But this one, uh, so it's silent, as in no one talks. There are sound effects and there are like letters and like things like written that you can read because a main part of this is there is a letter written from Stephanie Brown to Cassandra Cain that is very ominous, and by the last page, you'll see why. If whatever it's teasing in this is true, I will be very upset because it involves one of my favorite characters. But overall, I love when they do the silent issues if they're done well, and this one is done very well. So that is Batgirls number 14, following the footsteps of G.I. Joe with the silent issues. And that's it because I don't have the A cover.
Okay, so I read Strange, issue number 10. So sadly, this is the final issue. This was just the end of this series, as they're launching a new Doctor Strange series coming up. There's already been solicitations for it. But this wraps everything up very nicely. This is done by Jed MacKay, one of my favorite writers at Marvel, with art by Juan Ferreira. And so I guess first thing I'll say is there's sort of a first appearance in this. And I say it that way because it's like a big cosmic entity, new cosmic powerful entity. But by the end of the issue, it's kind of gone. Could come
Hmm.
back someday, but gone. So I'm going to mention it, but I'm going to mention it in those sober terms. So, of course, last issue, Stephen Strange, who is still dead, he is still sort of the harvestman. He has teamed up with Clea, and they've attacked the headquarters of the Blasphemy Cartel, who are a lot more powerful than they ever suspected. Well, the Blasphemy Cartel revealed last issue that they have one big weapon that they think can beat both of them, and it is the Revenant of Century, who is super powerful. So in this issue, you get to see how that fight goes. Which, I mean, trust me, the Century Revenant is very, very, very powerful, to the point it's going to cause Clea and Strange to do sort of a last resort thing that they know they're not supposed to do, and you'll have to see how that goes. So this does resolve everything. It resolves the plot with Clea's been after the whole time, as far as trying to figure out what happened to Strange, can he come back, et cetera, et cetera. All that gets cleared up. And everything with the Blasphemy Cartel does as well. So it truly is an end to the series, but a worthy ending.
And I say don't pick up a lot of the ties in the new Doctor Strange book, which is also written by Jed MacKay.
Mm.
It has I think Pascal Ferry's doing the art on that, but kind of a continuation, I would guess, because I think Clea's also supposed to be in that.
So we have two variants. This is the Coelho homage variant. And then this is the Mana Demonized variant for the final issue of Strange.
Okay, and one that I didn't get to read as in depth as I wanted to. If you know Deadpool books, you know he talks a lot, and so it takes about as twice as long to read. But this is Deadpool number 3, still dealing with Deadpool and what is going on inside of him. We see a little bit more of that carnage bit that may be infecting him. And we've got some variants for this one as well. This is the Romney variant. And we have the Pod Knock Agent X variant cover, which is very interesting. I don't know if this is part of any variant event they're doing, because it just says like down there it's like Agent X, who does not appear in this, but interesting enough.
Okay, so my last one to go over is a new #1 of a 4-issue series from Dark Horse called White Savior. This is written and drawn by Eric Wynn. There is a co-writer though. Scott Berman is his co-writer on this. So what this comic is about, it's about this kid named Todd Parker, which by the way, if you're going to use a character and name him Parker in a comic, like my brain just cannot separate that name from a certain other Parker. But his name is Todd Parker, and he has Asian ancestors, including his parents and his grandparent. His grandfather's been telling him this story for ages about this place in Japan called Inoki, Japan, where it was back in Japan feudal days, and there was some evil bandits and people who were treating them poorly. So the town rallied around this guy called the White Savior. He was some white dude who was there for reasons we don't know, who rallied them together and led them in this battle. And guess what? They lost. They followed him and they lost. They all died. So he's just told Todd, his grandson, this over and over again. Well, in this story, first half, you get to kind of meet Todd, see what he's like in the modern day. Well, through some series of events, he ends up getting transported back to feudal days. And guess where he ends up? In that town before all this happens. And yes, the White Savior is there. That's kind of the setup. That's what you're going to get from this first issue. There's a lot more details, tons more I left out. But, that's kind of their premise here is what will he do with his modern knowledge and will he learn lessons? As far as the art style is very indie style. It's a lot of weird perspectives and angles. It's, people's body proportions not being what you expect for the artist intended reason. So if you're a fan of that, cool. If not, you may go like, "Well, why is that person proportioned that way?" But that's what is intended. That's what you can get away with when you're doing an indie comic and you're doing it the way you want. There is no variant for it.
Is that your last one?
Yes.
Okay, so I've got two more. First off, we have Harley Quinn and Legion of Bats #4. I just got to skim it, but more of the same craziness that you've come to expect from this series. We've got the variant for this. Also, I love this variant. This is the hip variant, which is
the awkward sweater family picture.
Yep.
And then the braces on Harley.
just like that kind of ghostly superimposed image.
Yep.
It's just I feel like you had to have been alive in a certain time to, with your family going to the mall to get this picture
Your
taken.
secret family horrors are showing in the picture.
Yep. And then the other thing I wanted to show is we have Amazing Spider-Man #14 second printing. But what I really like what they did with this one down here at the bottom, it says featuring the first appearance of Hallows' Eve. So everybody knows why you did a second printing of this issue. It's because it's her first appearance. Put it on the cover.
Yep, don't hide it.
Don't hide it.
Right.
Don't pretend like we don't know why this sold so well. We know why. And you've got this great Terry Dodson cover for that as well. So that's what I got.
So that's about 21 issues we went over, all their incentives variants, but that's not all that is out this week. So we're going to mention other books that are out that we didn't get a chance to read. Like, for instance, I guess you could start. What else we got?
Starting off is we have Alien #5 on the ongoing Alien series.
Yep. Avengers Forever 13 is out this week. So, of course, that's going to continue on with that final big Avengers.
Yeah, there's not
story,
too many issues left of Avengers Forever.
Yep.
Then we have Dark Web X-Men #3.
Another X-Men book out this week. Immortal X-Men #10 is out this week.
Then we have Wakanda #4, which is kind of a spec book right now, featuring a potential love interest for Tozan.
Yes.
So
first appearance of a love interest for Tozan.
Well, I think that's one of those wait and see. We'll see if that's going to be a big deal or not. Who knows?
So there's two Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle books out this week, both, of course, part of Armageddon game. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 136 and Armageddon Game number 4. Both of those are out this week.
We also have Batman Fortress 8 of 8. It feels like that started forever ago.
I know.
But final issue of Batman Fortress.
Yep, Black Adam issue number 7 is out this week.
As well as one of my favorite all-time series, Fables issue 157 is out.
Monkey Prince number 10, so that's a maxi series, so it's not quite at the end there, but issue number 10
And
of
it
Monkey
is a
Prince.
tie-in with Lazarus Planet,
Okay.
which is, I think, one of the very few books that actually has like a little thing at the top that says like Lazarus Planet on it, because most of them aren't. Doesn't really trickle into the main series. We also have New Champion of Shazam, issue 4 of 4, so the final issue of that.
And lastly, Titans United Blood Pack number 5. I think with that little roundup, that at least is us mentioning everything out. We're trying to do that these days. We can't read it all. And, we just try to go over the ones we think most people want to hear about, or ones that really called us that we just can't say no to. If we had all the time in the world, we'd do them all. So
That'd be a long show.
again, thanks for watching. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit the subscribe button if you haven't. That way you don't miss any of our shows. We'll be back on Friday with Comics from the Future, where we'll go over all the comics that are open order, available to order for this week that are coming out in the future. So until then, have a great week and go read some cool comics. So thank you for watching.